The name of this presentation is Take Your Job Search for a Loop. And we're going to hear an entirely new technique, I think, about job searching, presented by two of the leaders of my favorite job club, other than those of you, this particular one, but my close second is Hired Texas out of Round Rock. They meet on Tuesday mornings, and so we've got Sunil, who is what's your current role there? Okay, but for a long time, were you like president? Exalted poobah?
He knows everything.
He does. He knows it all. So Sunil, just to tell you a little bit about their background, Sunil is starting the entrepreneur's journey, taking his skill set to a new, unfamiliar industry with high capital cost and a high risk of failure. What were you thinking? Working to define a product concept that will make sense to customers, Sunil found the looping techniques helpful with the process. Bruce Campney is his exalted sidekick. He designs user experiences to help make better decisions, whether doing industrial control monitoring 24 hours a day or on a web page for just a moment. Great experiences are then the right information. Great experiences are then the right information great experiences. There's something weird with this sentence. The right information is presented in the right way at the right time. Looping combines different methods to help make any kind of decision. Both gentlemen have either served on the board or as leaders of Hired Texas, the excellent, I underline that, job club in Round Rock that meets on Tuesdays. Here's the Sunil and Bruce show.
All right. So thank you, Kathy. We have a handout for you today. This is going to be an interactive presentation. Simple sheet of paper. There is one side which is blank. We're going to call that the front. There's a side that has something printed on it. We're going to call that the back. And what we'd like you to do is simply fold it over one way and the other way so that on the front you will have 4 quadrants that you can use during the exercises we're going to have you do. On the back, there are URLs and QR codes so that you can access additional material related to our presentation and provide some simple feedback to us that we can take back to the originators and other facilitators using this technique so that as they're going around the Austin area and other parts of the country working with people on this, they can benefit from whatever we learned doing this presentation. So, the looping method is fundamentally about the reality that life is not linear. If you've ever been pulled over by the police because they think you've had one too many and they ask you to walk that straight line, you know that you can't. And even if you try that stone cold sober because you think if you do it well when you're sober, you can maybe do it when you're not, you really can't walk that line straight because you're not meant to. The body sways from side to side. And careers and other things in our lives tend to cycle back and forth. We tend to return to the same state periodically. And the looping method is designed to help us figure out where we want to go next so that instead of moving around at random, we can create some direction that takes us where we want to go. We know we want to end up at a certain point, and if we can create our path instead of simply follow a path that is imposed upon us, we can get there more quickly. So the first step in the looping process is to clarify what it is that we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to define a specific question about what we're trying to do, what are the obstacles that are in the way, and what we need to overcome. This is a process of discovery. It's not about what is right or what is wrong. It's simply about what do I not know that would be helpful to get me moving. So we're going to use a technique called get off your butts. If you were attending Hired Texas on Tuesday, Candy Barone talked a little bit about this. You have the really big thing that you want to accomplish out there somewhere, but it's so big you don't know how to get there. And she broke it down into what are 5 steps that move you in the right direction, ending with the big thing you want to do. This is kind of the same thing. What are the things getting in your way that are stopping you from taking that step? Okay? What keeps you from getting what you want? What are the obstacles that you face? What are the things that scare you? Right? A lot of the times we don't take a step forward because it's scary. And what are the mental barriers that you feel? So, a few examples. Reasons you might not have gotten a promotion at work, but my boss doesn't like me, but I don't have a particular skill, but I don't speak up enough in meetings, but I haven't led a team, but I'm late for meetings a lot. And maybe you're late for meetings a lot because there's something about the company you don't like, and you'll be happier now that you're not there. But I don't have time or the money to take a class to get the skill. But I'm afraid to fail or sometimes to succeed. You'd be amazed how many people are happy to stay where they are because they're afraid to do more. But I'm an introvert and I don't like to be the center of attention.
But I'm an extrovert and I just run over everybody I talk to.
Yeah. But I don't understand the difference between leading and managing. And you have no idea how many managers I've met who think they're leaders, and it's because they don't understand the difference between leading and managing. So we're going to start with the first quadrant in your sheet of paper, and we're going to give you 5 minutes to write down every but that you can think of. Anything standing in your way of submitting an application, landing an interview, figuring out what job you want to do, taking that class, whatever it is that you want. You have a question?
But I don't know which one is the first one.
Pick one at random.
Be creative.
Remember, this isn't about right or wrong, it's about getting started.
The quote that is driving me in all of this is from Galileo. And it says, all truths are easy to understand once they're discovered. So today we're going to try to discover those. So think about your buts and what are the problems that you're trying to discover answers to. So the first step of this was making a list of all the reasons I can't do something, but my boss doesn't like me, but I can't afford education, but whatever, right? The second piece that we're working on right now is taking that list and looking for the things that might eliminate, overcome, or leverage your buts in a positive way.
At the end of the clarify piece of the loop, what we're trying to do is come up with a question that we can feed into the process to come up with an answer for. And we like the how might I variation of the question because this helps define what kinds of actions we want to take. But it's important that you become as specific as reasonably you can about the question you want to ask. All right, so if your question was how might I get a new job, that can lead you down a lot of rat holes that aren't very helpful. If all you want is a new job, there's McDonald's and Burger King, and if you actually want benefits, Starbucks. But if you're asking how might I discover companies in Austin with a social mission where I can explore opportunities to apply my skills as a UX designer, that's a lot more specific, and it's a lot easier for people to help you answer that question than the first one. Now, one caution, you don't want to become excessively specific. That can eliminate options or avenues of exploration that might lead you in a really interesting direction. I didn't realize what I wanted to do until I spent a lot of time with the Round Rock Chamber and people in the business community and realized that there were some holes in the way we're doing economic development in Austin that perhaps I could find a way to solve. And if I'd been super intensely focused on one and only one thing, it would not have occurred to me to think about something else. So the second piece of the loop is the create piece. Here we're trying to come up with a small project or experiment that will provide new knowledge that we don't have that can help us move forward in our next step, whatever that step may be. The idea here is to create value not only for you, but for other people. You should produce something out of this process because it helps us learn when we're synthesizing the information for other people's consumption as opposed to simply trying to figure out what it means for us and us alone. And as you're trying to find ways to apply the information that you're learning to help other people, that can create an opportunity for a new and amazing idea that you wouldn't have thought of if you're focused only on what can I do with this. Now you need to have fun while you're doing this, but do step outside of your comfort zone. Right? Most of the really good career coaches around here will say that the most interesting things happen when their clients step outside their comfort zone and do something that's not exactly what they've been doing for a long time. And make sure that whatever it is you do, you have a commitment to produce something that moves you forward, but also create something that other people can hold you accountable to. So that can be your accountability partner, if you're working with the team that can hold you accountable. But there needs to be something that you're going to produce, has a deadline, and that you can be measured against. Otherwise, it's just pie in the sky, not really anything necessarily going to happen there. So, our create exercise is called cover story. And the idea here is that somewhere in the future, a magazine is going to be published with a cover story about the really cool thing that you've done. We're looking for a concept, the name of the magazine, and it can be a completely made up name or something real. When is it going to be published? And it has to be a date in the future. It can't be something in the past. We want to create a headline. We want to add an illustration. And if there's enough time, you can start drafting the first paragraph. Right, normally this is a 30-minute exercise. Due to time constraints, we're going to do 15 minutes here. But just as a simple example, let's say that 2 years from now, in January of 2021, Product Management Today, which is a real magazine, is going to do an entire issue on achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2050. There's a lot of headlines that can go with that. Some will be process related, some will be product related, but it doesn't limit you to anything in particular. But it gives you a high level idea of what we're looking for here. The concept should be big, the headline should be a little more specific. All right? So this will be the third and maybe even the fourth quadrant on your page, depending on how much you like to doodle. I hate doodling, so I would stick to the third piece of it. And we're going to give you 15 minutes for this one, because it's a little bit longer. Do you have any questions before we get started on that, about what we're trying to do? So, think about some big thing that you want to accomplish at some point in the future. It could be you've landed a great job and developed the most awesome product since sliced bread. It could be that you've started your own consulting business like Dean and some great client that he's landed. Or you've started your own business as an entrepreneur and you've created the coolest app since, I don't know, I can't really think of too many cool apps. They're mostly not that interesting.
That tracks all the people that are tracking your location.
There you go. That would be a good one. Google's obviously on the top of the list of offenders there. So, what's the big thing that you're looking for? Create the name of a magazine that might publish it. Pick a date for when you want to accomplish it, and then what's the headline for the article about how awesomely you did that job. All right?
You can kind of look at this in terms of a Elon Musk story, right? It's the blog posting for Mars Today, right? And the article is Elon Musk is interred on Mars. I'm sure that's his goal. Right? And the publishing date, well, probably for Elon, that would be like, 2,500 or something?
All right, so let's call time there. Quick show of hands. Who used a actual publication for theirs? Looks like not quite half of you. Who made one up because you couldn't think of anything that's a real publication? All right, a few of you. So whatever work you want to do, there are trade publications in there and you should become familiar with them. It's great that you can make up the name of a publication, but you should at least be aware of the ones that relate to your job or your future career. If you're going to make it big in your industry, that's where you want to be published. Let's ask about a couple of those concepts. Let's just go back real quick here. Who has a concept and a headline that they want to share with us? Something off the wall? Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of. So mine is called Hear Me, H-E-R-E, me. The magazine is Wired, and the headline is, Can You Hear Me Now, like H-E-R-E. New tool brings together remote workers and learners and destroys geographic barriers. And I kind of started a couple of different paragraphs, but some kind of telepresence or something that just completely changes the whole remote and screen sharing landscape, so that people can literally work together in ways that they never could before.
Cool. I'm actually looking forward today that you can put on a pair of VR glasses and it'll be like you're in a room with people, because the ones now are just way too big for that.
So one of my taglines, or somebody would be describing it, it was like Slack and Oculus had a baby and it grew up and became. So, a little kind of thinking big, I guess.
That's some pretty cool thinking.
Product name.
Yeah.
Bruce, you guys call
Here, yeah, I know.
so they can be on the microphone and you can actually hear us.
Sorry, yeah, I'll.
Anybody else want to hear? No? All right.
I'm a developer, so in developing an application is very complex. But I was thinking, when you develop, it's like building a house. So when you build a house, you have a design, and you have your windows and all the building blocks. So developing applications would be like building blocks, like Legos. Take this part, this, that, and that. So in the future, you just pick whatever your needs are and go on shopping for a web bar. So.
Well, I thought that was part of the reason there were so many security holes, is they kept reusing the same damaged building blocks in every program.
So based on the security and everything.
Shows you how long it's been since I've written code.
Well, the name of the is just the future. What is that? Oh, I'm sorry. Technology for the future. So that's the magazine using IE and all the concepts.
Cool. All right. So I think my favorite headline for my example of achieving net zero by 2050 would have to be carbon capture finally made economical.
Well, you said to think big.
Yeah.
So, I've been looking at possibly getting out of the training world and getting into possibly political mediation. And wait till you hear the concept. The concept is closing the political divide by the 2020 election. That's usually the reaction I get. Yeah, we've gotten to a place where we're no longer listening to each other, and to me, that's killing the country. And so,
Batteries are overrated.
headlines is that voters no longer are voting straight ticket. People truly enjoying the presidential campaign. And to me, that's what it is. And I really do think that there are a few things that we can do, and we'll start small here in Austin, actually, just developing a few ways of actually creating a way that we can actually listen to each other, even though we have very different ideas. So no Comedy Central.
So we on Comedy Central?
It may end up there. But I have no idea how this is going to go. But that's the idea.
Well, that's definitely thinking big. It's thinking a little masochistically, but it's thinking big. All right. So the third piece of this is to take the thing that we've created that defines what we're trying to figure out, and connect with the resources out in the world that can help us answer the question or solve the problem and start moving forward. Now, the more technical the question, the more likely that you'll be able to find something useful by going online or going to the library, looking at the right resources. But as you start getting into things that are less technical, more likely than not, the answer is not going to come from these kinds of resources. It's going to come from talking to other people. So if you're an introvert, you need to develop your networking skills. If you're an extrovert, you may need to develop your listening skills so that you're hearing what the other people are trying to tell you. But beyond encouraging you to network as simply a good way of getting a job, all of this, what you're going to learn, who you're going to learn it from, requires human interaction. We're not yet at the point where AIs can completely pretend to be us and answer your questions. Although you have to love the recent Dilberts that are about that, where Dilbert taught his super awesome AI to respond as if it was Twitter.
And then there's always the 60 Minutes program on Sunday this week, where they're going to tell us that AI is going to take all the jobs.
Their job.
Actually, it can already do that. There are 3D printers operating in the former Soviet Union building large commercial buildings, and there's no reason that machine couldn't be brought here to build a wall. Somebody's just got to pay for it, and Putin's got to say it's okay. So, so to connect, we're going to use a technique called backtalk, and in this one, you're going to split up into groups of 3. Within your group, we're going to go by alphabetical order and first name. And the way this works is each person will have 1 minute to prep their 2 Imagineers. You're going to tell them what your question is, what you're trying to figure out. After you've prepped them, you'll turn away. We'll give them 3 minutes for them to talk back and forth with each other about how they would approach the question that you're asking. You're going to write down everything that you can that they say that sounds like it might help you. And after that 3 minutes, we'll give you 1 minute to debrief. If you have a question to clarify something they said, that's your opportunity to ask that. If you missed something that they said and you want them to repeat it, again, that's your opportunity to ask that. So if we can split up into groups of 3, we can get this one started. Sure.
I didn't hear quite what the Imagineers are supposed to do is not come up with a solution. They're supposed to help you rephrase the question. Is that what you said?
So it's not necessarily rephrasing the question, but how would they approach it?
So
Whatever
in other words,
question you're asking them.
So you're going to propose a problem, and they're going to talk to each other and ignore you, and you're going to be looking the other way and just listening into their conversation. And their goal is to take your idea and do something with it. And it could be anything from redefining the problem so that it's clear and easy to understand, to 10 different ways you could build a better mousetrap. And it's entirely up to them, and your job is just to listen.
So is this question based on our previous exercise, or totally different? What if it's really technical and you have...
Then you're down to, can they understand?
Well, if it's a really technical question, their approach might be, how do I figure out what all of that means? And there could be something in there that you didn't think of. And this happens with me in technical conversations all the time. Somebody's talking about something I don't understand. But if you can ask the right questions of the person, then you get enough information to figure out which parts of it are important. If that technical person doesn't know how to explain it to me unless I ask them the right question.
And then that'll be the conversation. And so this is about 4 minutes long for each person. So we're going to go through, and 3 people together. One person's going to describe their problem, the other 2 are going to talk about it, and then they're going to get feedback. And then we're going to switch to the next person and do it again, right? So we're going to be on the clock, and so the clock will be your limiting factor here.
It can be one of your clarify but statements. It can be a piece of your cover story.
All right, so get in groups of 3.
So we want to keep this short. Does anybody have a really wild idea that came out of Babcock, something they wouldn't have thought of that their partners did, that they'd like to share with the group? All right.
We were talking about it. I feel like I'm pretty passionate about it. We were just mainly talking about how it's just as much. So we were talking about how it's just as much the responsibility of the individual to interview or to vet out the opportunity that they're looking into, as it is, the employer's opportunity to interview you. It's really important to know the background of the company, the values, things like that, and then also. In the interview process or anything like that, this goes really deep, but the management style, how good of a leader is this person for you to have them, and I said this when I stepped up there, is I don't trust people above me because I just don't. Maybe that's my personal issues, but I'm dealing with it, don't worry. Point is if somebody's going to be leading you, they're impressing their belief systems, their values, their principles on you, and it's your responsibility to say, hey, is this a person who I trust, who I believe in as a leader, who's somebody who I can look up to, somebody who's going to value and respect me, and listen to the ideas I have. Are they going to be good at communicating with me? I don't know. All those things are things that I find important, because if you don't have that relationship, then it's gonna be toxic, and it's your responsibility to vet that out, because if you don't, then you're gonna take that toxicity from work and you're gonna bring it home, and it's gonna get on your family, your pets, your loved ones, your friends, and I don't know if that's not fun.
Yeah.
What else? Anybody?
So the final piece of the loop, part that closes it and brings it all back together, is for you to consider the information that you learned during this little experiment or research project that you've done. Figure out what the insights are from that you can use, and use that to start another loop that you can build upon and continue the process. So remember, don't be boring. The more interesting things are, the more likely you are to continue working on it. You want to keep things in each loop relatively small. The bigger the project, the less likely you are to get started on it. I know that one of the reasons you try to keep your projects and leap to success down to about 4 weeks is, but realistically, if you can, anything that you can break down into smaller pieces and make some progress and say, yay, I got that done, you're more likely to get started than you are if you're looking at something that's way far in advance. So we deliberately just scratched the surface of what the looping method does. There are a number of tools and techniques within the method that you can try, depending on what exactly your guts are. So we'd invite you to explore the looping method further. To do that, to join the looping community, and these QR codes are on the back sheet of your paper. You can go to the loopingmethod.com website. All of the tools are open source, free to use. You just need to sign up and start exploring them. And then we created a feedback form on Google with a few simple questions about your experience here. So whatever feedback we can get from you about this, we can take forward to other facilitators in the area, let them know what works, what doesn't work, or how to make their looping experiences with other groups even better as we go along. So.